Hello, and welcome to the Red Flags Podcast.
The first podcast that takes love, sex, and relationship questions from Reddit and attempts to provide helpful advice based on the experience of two strangers on the internet.
I'm Greg Feeney.
And I'm Deb Gould. And we are those strangers.
Hey, Deb. How you doing today?
Hey, Greg. I'm good. How are you?
Doing better than last week. No booster side effects to deal with, so.
That is good news.
You'll
good. Have to get your next booster soon, probably, so we'll see.
Oh, gosh. That's probably... Oh, man. Never ending. I wish I could have just got the the full dose, because I guess, instead of the half dose, just give it to me all at once. I don't want to keep coming back, so.
We'll see what happens.
So this episode is going to be our Valentine's Day exclusive episode.
Because it is being released on Valentine's Day, legit on the 14th of February.
That's right. You can get your Valentine's Day vibes rolling Monday morning.
All right. One of my favorite Valentine's Day traditions that seems to be going strong and stronger every year is this idea of roaching your ex. Have you heard of this?
No. I just heard about it now. So
yes. Yeah. So the idea is that a lot of zoos, right, that have cockroaches in their collection will accept a nominal fee, $15, $20, and they will name a cockroach officially, really after anyone, but it's advertised as roaching your ex.
So I guess are these the big scary ones that
yes,
are
these are
in Africa and stuff?
Exactly. These are the ones that hopefully you're not just seeing in your home.
Yeah, I tend to not name those. I usually just kill them or something like that.
Or bring them outside.
Oh yeah, that's probably the more environmentally conscious thing to do.
Let me say, I'm talking specifically about a tree roach in Texas, but if you just have a roach, yes, just kill it. Yeah,
but tree roaches in Texas, they're like small dogs. They're so large.
Well, that's why it feels weirder to kill it, because it's this is definitely an entity with a family, and maybe I just need to put them back outside.
See, for me, it's so large that just my lizard brain takes over and I just murder it immediately.
That's fair. Yeah. They're terrifying. But anyway, yes, they are the really large, big cockroaches that you see that would be at a zoo, right? Because who's going to a zoo to see, a standard American cockroach? But what are your thoughts on this? Is this something you would ever do?
I guess it could be a good way to sort of give yourself some closure on a relationship. If this is your go-to, if you're doing this every year and it's the same ex over and over again, then you maybe need to check yourself. But, if you just wanted a good laugh and kind of a final fuck you before you just completely move on, then yeah, I think that could be kind of liberating.
Yeah, for me, it feels a little bit more maybe you would do this for a friend who just went through a really difficult breakup, right? Name the cockroach after their ex as a gift to them. That feels less weird to me.
Right. I remember maybe 15 years ago, it was really popular to name a star after somebody and then give them the little sheet.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
I think just like that.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. It's just the opposite version, I suppose.
I was saying to my partner yesterday when I was, looking at all the different locations that will accept your money for this purpose, how I was I'm pretty sure I named a cockroach for someone, but I don't think it was for negative. It was here's a gift of a cockroach that's been named something really stupid. And he was yeah, that was me. And I was oh shit, I'm sorry. Totally forgot. I guess early in our dating life, maybe the first Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's follows the holidays, and I clearly just watched Bad Santa a couple times. And so I named a cockroach Fuckstick through the Bronx Zoo and then gifted it to my new boyfriend.
That's a very creative usage of it, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's a good suggestion, you don't want to spend too much money. You're not super invested maybe in this person yet.
Yeah, I hope maybe my wife listens and you know, maybe I can get a cockroach named Fuckstick next year or something else.
It's very affordable. Yeah.
All right. Well, real quick, I wanted to mention just briefly something that I ended up looking into about Valentine's Day. I was kind of curious about the origins of Valentine's Day, and I don't want to get too far into the details, but essentially there is a lot of conjecture that Valentine's Day originally was just a day for Saint Valentine. It was the day he died. And there was nothing love or anything like that about it. It was just they were supposed to just honor him. Well, as often has happened in history, oftentimes pagan holidays get sort of like sucked up by these Christian holidays when they're trying, I guess they're trying to make it easy for like the pagans to like transfer like, hey, look, we got this holiday too, So the original pagan festival called Lupercalia was in ancient Rome, dates back to 5 BCE. It was described as a bloody, violent, and sexually charged celebration with animal sacrifice. There were random hookups. There was matchmaking to ward off evil spirits and promote fertility. They had a hat. Well, I guess it probably wasn't a hat. I don't know what you put names in back then, but probably not a hat. It was probably like a cauldron or something more epic sounding. The women could put their name in the thing, and then men would draw them, and then they would stay together for a whole year until the next festival, which is pretty bonkers.
It's not a horrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like maybe like a Tinder that just takes a year. You're stuck with that person, then you can swipe next year. I don't know. And then some of these couples would end up staying together, get married, and then some would do it again the next year and try somebody new. But this part is pretty metal. There was these priests called Luperci. They would sacrifice goats, smear the blood on their foreheads, wash it away with milk. Then they would cut strips from the goat, and they would run around town naked, whipping any women they saw to promote fertility. Red, white, typically the colors of Valentine's Day, the blood of the goat, and the milk to wash the blood off.
Yeah. I mean, this is a certain Valentine vibe that I don't always have. I mean, according to this, the zoo should actually be sacrificing the cockroach in the name of your ex.
Yeah, well, I did read on a little bit, and it seems like over the years, it became less brutal. There was no sacrificing, there was no nudity. Basically, just people back then really knew how to party.
I mean, I would love to just step into time and just watch it. Like, I don't necessarily want to get whipped or like touched by goat's blood, but I mean, maybe just once, I guess. I don't know.
Well, when in Rome, right?
Literally, yes. No, I like that. Okay. I've never heard of this, so thank you.
One small note, you know how like you can look up your birthday and see like other cool birthdays or days associated with your birthday?
Yes.
My birthday is the day that Rome was founded. So that's my claim to fame, I guess.
I mean, I feel like my dad similarly was really obsessed that his birthday was on the Ides of March. And I was like, it really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, and another thing, I guess the word February comes from a word. Was it Latin? Is that what the Romans spoke? Maybe, yeah, a Latin word. It gives them a Latin word that actually deals with fertility, I think. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of an association with this month and the idea of fertility and renewal.
Is this why it's shorter? We need to do so much more research.
That's true. I don't know why it's shorter, but that could be.
Okay. Well, let's hop into a Valentine topic.
Yeah, sounds fun.
All right. So this is from r/relationship advice from user Seeker7628. Title is Partner 28 Female Refuses to Spend Valentine's Day with Me, 28 Female. Hey, I'm 28 female and my girlfriend Jade is 28 female. We've been together for 4 years. Every year for Valentine's Day, Jade spends the entire day and evening with her best friend Brooke. They call it Galentine's Day and started this tradition when they were younger and single. The first year we were dating, I didn't think anything of it because we were a fairly new couple. The second year, I was a bit bummed out and told Jade that and said maybe next year we can spend it together. And she said, yeah, maybe. The third year, I asked again, and she said, no, it's her and Brooke's day. Now we're coming up on our fourth Valentine's Day, and I'm wondering how to handle this. Brooke has been single this entire time. I know most people roll their eyes at Valentine's Day, but there's two reasons why this is important to me. Jade knows about all of this. We've had this conversation more than once. First, I was never allowed to celebrate any of those holidays growing up. Halloween, V-Day, Christmas, etc. And so I really enjoy going all out celebrating holidays now that I can. I think that Valentine's Day is a cute reminder of how much you love and appreciate your partner, and it's a special time carved out each year to be a bit cheesy with your love. Second, not quite as important, but still relevant, we live in a small town that really hypes up those holidays and always puts on really fun activities. They generally have a market, some games, stuff like that. The Valentine's one is all set up to be very romantic and cute, and the restaurants set up the tables in twos with candles and balloons. Lol. Jade goes with Brooke, and I don't go at all. I don't want to go alone given everything is set up for couples, and my friends are all dating or married, so they go with their partners. We've talked in the past about spending V-Day with all three of us, but Jade says that ruins the idea of it being a Galentine's with no partners, and I also don't really want that either. I also think I should throw in there that this has absolutely nothing to do with Brooke. I think she's wonderful and there's no issue there at all. I don't want to break their tradition, but after waiting 4 years, I would like to spend at least one Valentine's Day with my partner instead of sitting at home on the couch. Any advice on how to handle this? Am I being ridiculous? Should I just drop it? Or is it fair of me to want this?
Well, first of all, I know I'd heard this term Galentine's before, so I looked it up. And I feel like most people know this, but I don't because I never watch Parks and Rec. So I guess it comes from Parks and Rec. But one thing that I did find is that technically it's supposed to be on February 13th.
Yes. Yeah, that was my first thought was, hey, Valentine's Day is officially on the 13th. And there's no waffles in this message at all.
Yeah, I don't get the waffles reference, but
it's fine.
But yeah, I was like, so that was my first thought. I was like, well, why don't they celebrate Galentine's on the 13th? And then she can do the stuff with her girlfriend on the 14th. Like that seems to be the quickest and easiest solution.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hard one because they've had this tradition for before the relationship began. But I do think that there needs to be a little bit of compromise here. I think after this relationship has worked well and has continued for 4 years, especially considering that, you know, this partner has really asked for this, has given specific like chances to have this conversation, and year after year it's kind of ignored.
Yeah, and I feel like these kind of topics can be sticking points when people first get together, in the sense that holidays really vary from person to person on how people feel about them.
Yeah.
But this woman is definitely telling her partner that I care about this and this means something to me. And so even if her partner doesn't really care that much about holidays, she needs to consider that she does and probably try to find some sort of compromise.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that you need to learn early on about each other in a relationship of like, what are the things that you really value that maybe the other person does not? I mean, I guess it's akin to a love language, right? What is important that you would overlook so that you don't overlook it? And I know for me, holidays would be a huge one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I know that you are a big fan of holidays. So when you entered in your current relationship, I imagine you had a debriefing where you were like, hey, I need you to know this about me.
Yes. Always a holiday debrief of like, this is the minimum effort I need for a specific holiday. And that might seem crazy, but it just makes things easier. People love when they know what they need to do or like what expectations are present. And so for me, it's like, listen, Valentine's Day, like, I don't care if it's not like a huge thing, but like, you need to give me a card. End of story. If you don't give me a fucking Valentine's Day card, I'm gonna be mad.
So let's put Valentine's Day in. I'm gonna put it in in the tier 2 holiday list. Like it's not Christmas, it's not Thanksgiving.
Yep.
It's tier 2, right?
Definitely tier 2.
So now what I want to know is, does tier 2 mean a card is like sufficient?
For me, it means a card is sufficient. But I think for a lot of people, I mean, there's such a spectrum of what is enough for Valentine's Day. I mean, I know there's always articles every year of like, this is how much the average Bostonian is going to spend this Valentine's Day. And I mean, people spend a lot of money, like going out to dinner and flowers and gifts and jewelry and who knows what else.
So for you personally, how far does this go? Do you get an Easter card?
I need an Easter basket, Greg.
Oh, you need the basket, not just a card. Okay.
Yes, I need an Easter basket.
What about like, I'm trying to think, like what's the bottom holiday where you have expectations? Like, is it
St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, okay. And is that just a card or is that?
That's nothing necessary.
Oh, okay. So you just you draw the line there.
I draw the line. Yes.
Okay. There's no pressure like being from Boston to like, or are you like kind of saturated with that?
I think that might be what it is. I really don't care about it. I also feel like it's I don't know, it's become a holiday kind of more associated with just getting hammered. And so it's just kind of like, I've relinquished you.
True. Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know all that. I was curious about that. I want to say back onto this topic, based on the language used in the title, refuses to spend Valentine's Day. Yeah. It sounds like maybe Jade doesn't want to back down on this and that she doesn't want to compromise. So we've given some examples of how they could compromise by maybe moving Galentine's to the 13th, or actually another idea I had, which I don't think I mentioned, was why not split Valentine's in two? Like it's a whole day. Like, can't you do something with your friend for a part of it and do something with your partner for the rest? Anyways, assuming that Jade is just like, no, I'm not budging.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Yeah, I mean, these are all good solutions. I think the other solution might be for them to create their own holiday, right? It seems like the partner that wrote this, their goal is, I mean, they obviously want to celebrate Valentine's Day with their partner. But since their partner has this tradition with Brooke, and Brooke has been single this whole time, we don't know more about Brooke. You know, I'd love to know, is like being single, like, are they cool with that? And this is just like a fun thing they do as friends? Or is the reason that Jade is like intent on keeping it is because maybe Valentine's Day would be really hard for Brooke if they didn't have this tradition? Either way, I feel like they could find something new that would still carve out some day for them to be cheesy. And that's what she wants.
So are we talking about the friend Brooke and Jade carving out a day for their Galentines, or are we talking about?
I'm talking about the girlfriends,
okay,
the partners.
So you're saying the partners could just, but then what about the cool market and the candles and the tables for two? And seems like the town goes all out.
Yeah, where the hell do they live? Like Gilmore Girls, like Stars Hollow?
I don't know. I'm imagining like a Norman Rockwell painting or something.
Absolutely. I mean, my thought is Valentine's Day falls on a different day every year. So, for example, this year, Valentine's Day is on freaking Monday, right? So if Brooke and Jade's partner is going to spend Monday day and night together, fine. Like, you have Saturday, you know? I just feel like they could still take advantage of all the Valentine's Day stuff that's happening, but it could be on a different day. This really reminds me, I worked at a Hallmark store when I was in high school for a long time. And there was a couple that did not celebrate Valentine's Day, but they still had their own romantic holiday, and it was Groundhog's Day.
Oh.
And so they would each, it was my favorite thing. They would each individually come into the Hallmark store every year and be like, do you have anything with a groundhog on it? Do you have anything? And it was so funny because I'd be like, I know who you are. Like, I talked to your partner. They also wanted groundhog items. But I thought it was really interesting and cool that they had like co-opted a different holiday to be their kind of celebration of their relationship.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I know me and my wife, we don't make any fuss about Valentine's Day really, but we do occasionally we'll get dinner or something like that, but not, if we do it, it's usually not on the day. Like we'll just be like, hey, let's sometime this weekend or next weekend just, you know, celebrate Valentine's. So yeah, there's nothing too special about the day.
Yeah.
One other thing I would point out is we don't really know a lot about their relationship. I mean, I would say one thing that would really matter to me here is this reflective of some sort of pattern of behavior that her girlfriend has? Like, is she often dismissive of her feelings? Is she often dismissive of things that she tells her that is important? And that would really matter a lot to me here as far as how much I'm willing to compromise. If her girlfriend is normally really good about listening to her feelings and not dismissing things that she finds important, then I would be like way more likely to compromise and be like, yeah, you know what? It's not a big deal. But if they have this sort of issue more often than just this, then at some point you do need to pick a spot to just be like, you know, the buck stops here. Like, this is important to me. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying, this question kind of goes beyond Valentine's Day. You know, is this something where this is just one example of things that this person is asking for outright and isn't getting anything in return? That would be the real problem.
yeah, it seems like with every problem, there's always some subtext baked into it. Like, is this something that the person's like picking as a battleground because it's a constant issue in other areas, or is it just a one-off thing? And if it's a one-off thing, you know, split the day up, move it to another day, do what you got to do, make both people's priorities work out.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic. This one comes from r/relationship. How do I, 28-year-old female, make it clear I'm not planning to hook up with my date, 29-year-old male? TLDR. I, 28-year-old female, reconnected with someone, 29-year-old male, and planned a date. How do I gently express that I'm not planning to hook up with him? How do I, 28-year-old female, make it clear that I'm not interested in hooking up? I, 28, I just noticed this is 28 female a lot. She's really wants to hammer in that she's a 28-year-old female. I, 28-year-old female, live in Ontario, where we're currently in lockdown. That means the dates either consist of walks outside in the frigid cold or at-home dates. I recently reconnected with someone I knew several years ago, and we agreed to go for a short walk. I suspect that the logical thing to do after that would be to spend some time at his condo. To put it bluntly, how do I make it clear that I'm not going back to his condo for sex? I don't want to be presumptuous and assume that's what he expects, but I need a gentle way to get this message across. Thanks. Oh, well, thank you. That's very polite. It's Canadian, right?
Yes.
Of course there's a thanks at the end.
I'm a little confused by this one, only in the COVID sense, right? Like, dating, they're in lockdown, which means dating is either a walk in the frigid cold, which, by the way, never, not ever would I do that, or at-home date. So I guess going to his condo would be considered an at-home date. Okay.
Right.
So that would be considered safe.
Like COVID safe?
I guess so.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
they're apparently they're just not going out anywhere where there's going to be lots of people. So
That makes sense. Okay.
So my first question is, in the culture of today, does an at-home date signal sexy time? Like, do a lot of people get that vibe when you schedule an at-home date?
I feel like yes. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, even things like Netflix and chill existing, right? That idea that like you can't even watch a movie anymore without, can't finish a movie.
Yeah.
I want to see the whole movie. But anyway, it feels, I'm really bad at these questions, to be honest, because I'm like, how do I say it? I'm like, you just say that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times with these questions, there's always one answer that will fit 90% of them, and it's like, just say what you just wrote, and you're good to go,
But I respect that that's not easy for everyone.
Of course, yeah. And I agree that if she's thinking about that, then he's definitely thinking about it too. Like it's probably just best to put it out there, even if it feels weird, because I can guarantee you, like, maybe texting it ahead of time is going to be less weird than if it's in the moment and, like, dude, like, kind of goes in for it and she's like, no, like, sorry, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is more awkward, right? I mean,
Absolutely. And I feel like if I was going to, okay, so they reconnected. And we don't really know what their history is, right? Is this someone she met once, like on an online app or something? But reconnected with someone and planned a date. Okay, so like this feels still like a first date, even though they know each other.
yeah, I mean, she's saying reconnect. I don't know. It would be way different if she was like, this is a dude that I've hooked up with in the past.
Right.
Because then I would be like, oh, then you definitely need to say something. But
Yeah.
she doesn't mention that. So I'm going to go ahead and go with, yeah, this is more like first date. Reconnecting probably being like an acquaintance, somebody that she's never dated before.
And I like, how do I gently express it? Like, why do you have to express everything so gently? Like,
Yeah. I mean, look, communicating boundaries is super important. And I think at first it can seem difficult, but just like, working a muscle, it's like the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I think that when expectations are out in the open, then it just makes things go more smoothly. So I crafted a text for this
ooh,
woman.
okay. I was just thinking, what would I write? Let's hear it.
Yeah. So let me know. You can critique it when I'm done.
Okay.
Hey, I know this is kind of an awkward thing to say, but since the lockdown and cold weather are forcing us to have an at-home date, I just want to be upfront that I'm interested and want to take things slow. Hookups aren't really my thing. I'm not implying that your expectations are any different, but given the circumstances, I figured I should just clarify I'm really excited to hang out with you, and I'm glad we reconnected.
Oh, that's lovely. No, I mean, that's like perfect.
Yeah, and if anyone has a negative reaction to that, then you can basically write them off, right?
Oh my God, yes. That would be like, you're fine. Like, you haven't missed out on anything if this person is like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. So if anything, you're opening up more opportunities for this person to accidentally like show you who they are if they are something not great.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would say, critique wise, I think it's a perfect response for an emotionally intelligent human being. But I also think that for someone who's not good at this, obviously this message would look very different. So maybe it'd be a little shorter.
That's true. I tend to be a little overly verbose. Anyone that texts with me knows that though, so it wouldn't come as a shock. But yeah, I imagine if this woman is like, if her texts typically run in under 8-word count, then this would be a little bit too much. But
I will say that based on this question, it does make me think of like my most recent experience like on dating apps. And one of the reasons I liked some apps over other apps is because they would ask questions in the background for you to answer so you could see each other's responses. And I mean, they were wild, like it would be like, do you want someone to slap you in the face while you have sex? Like, yes or no? Like, this is important for me to know. To know.
Was that OK Cupid? Because I remember
Yes.
they had, okay, yeah, I remember answering those questions and it was pretty intense.
Right. But I mean, it definitely gave you a good idea of who you were dealing with.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is from r/relationships from username bypanicta. After 2 years with a guy, I'm starting to miss women sexually. It says throwaway account for very obvious reasons. I, 26 female, want to start by saying that my partner, 25 male, is absolutely amazing in every sense of the word. I do find him really attractive, and we have sex pretty regularly. Part of me feels really awful posting this, because I don't want to contribute to the stereotype that bi women can't make up their minds. But I'm really struggling with the fact that it feels like recently I've been hornier for women. All of my fantasies involve women, and when I do, quote unquote, help myself out, it's to those fantasies. I even approached my boyfriend about potentially having a threesome, but he surprisingly decided that he didn't want that. I truly do love my partner and do not want to end this relationship. I'm genuinely happy. But I seriously don't know what's causing this or what to do about it. Has anyone else had a similar experience? What did you do? Should I talk to my partner about this? What would I even say? Please help. I'm lost. My immediate thought here is there's a clear difference between your sexuality and if you choose to practice monogamy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I just want to make sure that that's really clear, because I feel like something that can be really challenging for people who identify as bisexual is, I mean, there's so many problematic feelings that people have about that, right? Like this user referenced, I don't want to contribute to this stereotype that bi women can't make up their minds. And I think that extends to anyone who's bisexual, that they're just people who can't decide either way. And that's, super problematic and not accurate.
And they seem like they get flack from both sides. Like they're like straight people give them flack, and then, non-straight people give them flack too. So they're kind of like in a weird spot.
Yeah. And I mean, something else that's problematic that comes from that is like people kind of think that bisexual people are like more prone to cheating, which is not the case. Right. So, yeah. I mean, the way I view this, and I'm interested to hear how you view it, Greg, is, I mean, this is the same as, say, a heterosexual relationship when you're attracted to another person, just generally.
Yeah. And I think that it's totally normal. And yeah, I don't really see any difference than if you're just fantasizing about random people of opposite sex or same sex. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So, and I would even add that I think it's just sort of human nature to build your fantasies around things that are maybe just outside the realm of possibility. You know what I mean? So, like, in other words, if she's with a man right now, it's pretty normal for her to fantasize about women, because it adds like a layer of like unattainable or something that she can't do in her current relationship. So it's like, I would put it in the same category as like, if you had a certain fantasy that your partner wouldn't want to take part in, and you can still fantasize about it, enjoy it on your own, maybe even role play it a little bit. I mean, I think that's like one of my go-tos. I'm always like, always gonna role play, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure how to role play this specific scenario, but maybe she could talk about what it was like to be with a woman, and they can get freaky while she's describing it. And, obviously he's saying he doesn't want a threesome, right, but that doesn't mean that his boundary is like up to the point of like just talking about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so I definitely think it's like almost like a grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. Like, of course you're going to fantasize about something that you are currently feeling like is not something you can have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also like kind of goes back to when you choose a person, and this is a relationship, they're partners, they've been together for some amount of time. You're choosing that specific person. You're not saying like, I will take this male gendered person right now. Mm-hmm. Like you chose that person to have a monogamous relationship with. So that's the challenge, So it's almost like to kind of remove the sexuality piece out of this just for a moment. When you choose someone to be in a partnership with, you're really choosing that person. I mean, me more so than many people, perhaps. I mean, I feel like I'm a cisgender woman who's in a heterosexual relationship, but I definitely, it's about the person, Like, I'm not with my partner because he has a penis. Like, I'm with him because I like that specific human.
Yeah.
And that should be really the issue. It's like, if the only problem here is that you're fantasizing about women while happen to be with a male, that's not really a problem unless you really feel like you need to act on that. And then maybe this relationship isn't the one you want to be in.
Right. I 100% agree with that. And also I think fantasies are often just fantasies. So even if she's fantasizing about women, it may not actually be what would satisfy her currently. Like when you have your fantasy in your head, it's perfect. Everything about it is exactly the way you want it, right? So she's in a happy relationship with good sex. Obviously, if she was going to be with a woman, that's no guarantee that the sex would be good. It's no guarantee that it would, that it would be a good experience. Like, it's just a fantasy. So I would also say, though, like, for what you were saying about, like, is this really a big deal to you? Is this something that you need to feel like I don't know, complete or
Yeah.
whatever, like then it could be a compatibility issue. But I would even say, even if that is the case, that she feels like this might be something that she just has to have, I think she needs to consider a few things first. One is she's 26. And let's be honest, statistically, it's very unlikely that these two people are going to be together for the rest of their lives. It's
True.
possible. It could happen, but it's very, very unlikely.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I feel like people get caught up in the like, oh God, like if she might be thinking like, I'll never be with another woman. But the reality is that's probably not true.
Yeah.
So, and, I think we have a tendency as people to always feel like a sense of like immediacy, like we need to do the thing that we want to do now because we might not have the chance. But it's like, obviously anything can happen. You get hit by a bus tomorrow, but you're 26. You most likely have a lot of life in front of you. You most likely have a lot of relationships, sexual experiences with many people in front of you. Mm-hmm. So let's not get too worried about one specific thing. And the other thing is, things change. Relationships change. Boundaries change. She brought the threesome up, right? And he said no. There's no guarantee that like in a year after he ruminates on that idea for a while, he decides, you know what? I think that would be kind of hot. And then boom, there you go. You got your threesome and life's good. So honestly, if she's broached the topic of threesome. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she broached the topic of like how he would feel about opening up her side of the relationship. Maybe that's another topic she should bring up. And if he's not interested, fine. But like, again, get those seeds in there because people can change the way they define their relationship during the course. So
she says the phrase hornier for women. So it's just in that moment, like that is what she is finding more attractive. And so she's fantasizing about it. And that's totally fine.
She could feel completely different in 6 months too. Like it's just because she's in this mental state right now, those things, I think everything about fantasies, horniness, libido, it all just kind of waxes and wanes. So I think just a wait and see approach is probably the best approach here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Okay, so this next topic comes from r/relationships also. It was posted by user Wicket Sticks. Should I mention my lung condition before a first date? I'm a 32-year-old male and I suffer from cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition that affects several parts of the body, but especially the lungs. The symptoms include persistent noisy coughing and generally chronic congestion. I've been dating casually during the last few months. My city has been in and out of lockdowns over the last couple of years, but restaurants and bars are currently allowed to open at half capacity. Is it prudent to bring up my condition prior to a first date? My reasoning for doing so is that I do not want my date to feel uncomfortable or scared in the light of the pandemic by my respiratory symptoms. I'm not constantly coughing or gagging, but it's persistent enough to be noticeable, and I've witnessed strangers move away from me on buses and subways. Oh, that sounds like a benefit. On the other hand, I feel that is kind of a heavy thing to bring up before I ever meet someone in person. It's likely that I would disclose it anyway if the relationship went somewhere, but I find it a tricky balance to hit. So far, I've been trying to gauge each interaction on its own and see what the vibe is, but I wonder whether it's sensible to have a general policy in place for everyone. All right, so what do you think, Deb? Is this something...
This is so interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
I feel like there's like a Venn diagram here because I think traditionally I would say this is too much information before a first date. But in light of COVID, I think it may be helpful and necessary, to be honest, to share something. And for me, it might not be like, hi, I have cystic fibrosis. Like, here's the Wikipedia page on cystic fibrosis. Read about it. But it might be like, hey, just so you know, like, I have a condition that's like respiratory based. I'm not contagious. It's not COVID related. But I know that right now, like, I mean, Greg, have you gone anywhere and like coughed?
Oh, I'm terrified to cough when I go out. Even if I'm wearing a mask, I'm still just like, if I feel myself having to cough, like I just like
running to the car, like
push push it down, go to the bathroom. I don't know. Like, yeah.
It feels like I remember coughing for the first time, like in a grocery store, like post COVID with my mask on and feeling like, oh my God, everybody's staring at me and I feel guilty that I'm even here and alive. So, I mean, with all that in mind, I think it would be helpful to share something to be like, hey, I'm going to cough, but here's why. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much exactly how I felt about it. I think that it could be smart to just mention like, hey, I have a medical condition that causes me to cough sometimes, and I just wanted to let you know I'm not sick or I don't have anything contagious. It's just a normal thing for me. And he doesn't even have to say that he has cystic fibrosis, because honestly,
Yeah.
I would say there's a decent amount of people that don't know exactly what that entails.
Yeah.
I'm not even that like up on it, but I know that it is a pretty heavy thing, and it could actually mean like a shortened lifespan. So it is like, it's definitely the kind of thing that you probably want to talk about once you start to have multiple dates. And now it's like, okay, before we like get any more serious, let's talk about my condition and what it means for me and my future and our future, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily necessary for him to come out and say he has cystic fibrosis, but
And I would even say don't. That's
really,
no one
See,
deserves that much information about you on day one.
See, I also looked at this from a different approach. Now, if I'm asking out somebody that I met, I don't know, at a meetup or something, then yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. But if I'm going to do like a dating profile, I might just go ahead and put that on my profile, because to me, those kind of things have always been the type of thing where like it just weeds out people that you don't want to really meet anyways.
Yeah, I thought about that because I was like, oh, this would be a great way to like get rid of any trash. But then I thought about like realistically, like what online dating looks like. And I mean, even me, I think about me swiping. I make the dumbest fucking rules for myself. And so if you had anything on that like once you put that you have cystic fibrosis in your profile, that is your identity now on online dating. Do you know what I mean? Like it's something you don't see often, so it's like a rarity. And so I feel like you would just become cystic fibrosis person. And I think it may cause people to decide, well, they don't have anything vested in you. So people make really irrational split-second decisions based on nothing. I mean, I remember being like, oh, they have a necklace on, swipe. Like you just make these arbitrary decisions. And so it could lower their possibilities,
Yeah, I definitely can see it from that perspective. I can also see it from the perspective of when I was on dating apps, I put in my profile that I had children because it's just, I didn't want to waste my time dating somebody that was just like an automatic no to children. You know what I mean? And I don't know, maybe these are two different topics. Maybe they both deserve like separate considerations.
I mean, I think they're similar in that it's like a screening tool. And so, but I think the difference is, like, for example, me, I did not want to date anyone with children, but I'm open to dating someone with cystic fibrosis. Like, I feel like you have a firmer stance on, like, do you want to be a step parent or not?
I think, honestly, if people were confronted with, do I want to date someone with cystic fibrosis, they probably don't know. They're like, oh, shit, I never thought about that. No idea.
Right.
So maybe it's posing a question that most people don't have an answer for, so therefore don't put it in your bio. Whereas, like, if you're like, I'm polyamorous, maybe put that in your bio, because most people...
Please put that in your bio.
Yeah, most people have snap decisions on whether they want to do that or not. But I would maybe liken this more to people that lie about their height a little bit or something like that. Because it's like, because I do feel like there's this thing where, like, from a guy's perspective, you hear all the time that there's like women on Tinder that are like, if you're not 6 foot, like, get out of here. You know what I mean? But It's like, in reality, if you're 5'11" and you meet this person and they really like you, like, it's kind of like, it? I don't know.
It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah. But I was more taking it like from my perspective, which was having kids, which I think is different. And it made me think of the, did you watch Game of Thrones, Deb?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the Tyrion quote where he says, don't forget who you are, wear it as armor, and then no one can ever use it to hurt you. So in other words, like, put it out there, and then you've already like owned up to it and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. But
Yeah.
you're right. I think in this case, it's one of those things where it's probably most people wouldn't even know if it was a deal breaker or not. So it's probably not worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I mean, I even feel like the term cystic fibrosis, since most people, like, unless you have a family member with it or something, like, you don't know anything about it. So I guess my approach is more just like you're gonna lose some people that might not be horrible people, but they're just like, I don't know what that is, so I'm just gonna like keep moving.
Right. Like you'll just lose them because they're just confused.
Right.
And they just reject.
And I just think, since dating, especially online dating, is such a numbers game, I guess I'm approaching this from that standpoint of like, you got to keep your numbers up. You can weed through it later. But I do think it's important for him to say something about the coughing before the date.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right. It is time for the disaster of the week. This is the time of the week where we pick one topic from Reddit that is an absolute shit show. And we bring it to you. And I'm going to tease this one a little bit. It's got a bit of a twist at the end.
More M. Night Shyamalan from Reddit.
Yeah. We like the twists.
Yeah. All right. So this is from Am I the Asshole? From user Cheap Apartmenty. And the title is, Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that he can't date younger and then get upset about my budget apartment? Okay.
I think you'll understand it once you read it more.
All right. So I recently got together with a guy from my hobby. He asked me out first, and I had some doubts that we'd work together as a couple because of the age difference. He's 35 and I'm 22. So in my apartment, since it's an old house that was originally a single-family house, there isn't much soundproofing, and the floors creak when people move. I've gotten used to the sound of the guy upstairs getting up at 4 a.m. since he starts work at 5, and the sound of the girls in the apartments to either side of mine watching telenovelas till midnight, taking work calls all day, and having friends over on weekend nights. I know when I play music or have friends over, some of the sound leaks through the walls. So I never get upset about hearing my neighbors because it goes both ways. So, when my boyfriend started coming over more often, he had complaints about the neighbors, which put me in an awkward place. He wanted to go speak to them or have me text them, and I said no. For example, one of the early times he stayed over, we went to bed around 10. He wanted me to ask my neighbor to turn down her TV. I said she didn't have it that loud, and she turns it off at midnight anyway. At 4 a.m., he got very irritated with my upstairs neighbor getting up and cooking breakfast. I said that he'd be done by 5 because that's when his shift starts. At 7 a.m., he was still trying to sleep in, and the neighbor on the other side had some work calls that he said he couldn't sleep through. I offered him earplugs, and he said he couldn't sleep with them in either. He wanted me to ask her to quiet down. He had similar comments every time he heard someone else in the building just living their life, especially if it was when he was in bed. I got frustrated with my boyfriend and told him, you can't expect to date a hot young 22-year-old and not want to deal with a 22-year-old's living situation. I don't know if you realize, but this is a normal apartment for someone my age. Hell, my neighbors are pretty great. Nobody's throwing loud parties on work nights. Nobody's having screaming fights. Nobody's having babies. The hot young part was in a sarcastic air quotes because those were his words, not mine. He got irritated and asked why I was bringing age into it. And I said it's because he can't both want someone so young and also want someone with house kind of money. And he was being so out of touch with how normal people in their 20s live. He got really irritated with me bringing age into it, and even more annoyed when I'd respond to his neighbor complaints in the future with, "Okay, boomer," or tell him that if he wanted me to have a rich person apartment, he could pay for it. Am I the asshole for what I said to my boyfriend about my apartment? Edit. A lot of comments are asking if we could stay at his house. It's not possible for me to get to his house on my own because I don't have a car and the buses don't go that far into the suburbs. So that would mean him driving 30 minutes from his house in the suburbs to pick me up, then an extra 30 to drive me to his house, then an hour round trip early in the morning to get me home in time for work. It's a lot easier for him to visit me in the city.
Okay, well, first thing I'll mention Since I did look at, I tend to not read the comments too much because I don't want my opinion to be swayed too much. Like I want to get my sort of like raw opinion.
Sure.
But I did read him on this one just because I knew this was going to be the disaster anyways, and there wasn't going to be a lot to say here that's probably not said. But one thing is that whenever this kind of topic comes up, the commenters always jump on the age gap. I think that's like it's valid, but at the same time, there's definitely people with this kind of age gap that have like good relationships. So I think it's a little bit wrong to just be like, oh, of course, look at the age gap. I mean, I think you can look at the age gap and be like, potentially there's some issues here if there's like some kind of power imbalance or whatever. Like we know that's possible. We also know that there's like a certain type of guy who goes for younger girls because girls his age won't put up with his bullshit.
Right.
So we know that those archetypes are out there, but I don't think it's fair to just initially say, oh, well, look at the age, duh. I mean, I don't know. That's just me being a little bit nitpicky, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, once you're, over 18, it's like you pick who you're with. I agree with the piece about like what kind of relationship do they have, and I always question really like the older male in this scenario, like you said. It's such a age difference where you wouldn't have like the same references to pull from, and I just don't know how you even talk.
That is true. That I've definitely thought about that. I've never been in this scenario, but yeah, I really like movies and stuff. So I'd be like, oh, you haven't seen Back to the Future? That's really weird. But anyways, but she's 22. And I think 22-year-olds, there's a wide range of maturity levels at 22. She could be a very mature 22-year-old, or she could be a very immature 22-year-old. It's a little tough to say. That being said, I think this dude is definitely the asshole here. And I'm a little bit suspicious about their relationship. First of all, the whole thing about why they can't go to his house seems a little off. And secondly, I would say that some of the stuff she said was like, she could have worded it better, maybe. Like when she was like, oh, you can't have like a hot young girlfriend. But like that, like she probably could have said that differently. But the sentiment of what she was trying to say was accurate.
Yeah. I mean, and just being respectful of someone's space. Like I can't imagine going over to someone's house that I'm dating and being like, this sucks, fix all of this. Like you don't live there. You just have to be there in the moment and do your best. I mean, I think we've all gone to someone new's apartment or home and have been like, this is not ideal for me right now and I cannot wait to get back to my own bed.
Yeah, and I think for me where the age actually comes in is that if this was a 22-year-old guy, I'd be a little bit more lenient and be like, yeah, 22-year-old dude probably is hasn't learned all his lessons and he's immature. But then when you tell me this is a 35-year-old guy doing this, I'm like, oh God, this dude's never going to change. Like that's the way I always look at it. Like, how old is this person? Are they young? Okay, it could just be them being young. Maybe not. Maybe they're always going to be an asshole. But if I see that they're like 35, 40, 45, it's like, oh, that person's like, the asshole has just taken root inside of them and will probably never be extracted.
Yeah. And it shows, for me, it's a lot about like selfishness, right? Like his needs are more important than where she currently lives and whatever her reality is. Like, bring your fucking white noise machine from home, dude. Like, this is bonkers.
Yeah, he can't wear earplugs? Like, what kind of baby shit is that? Like, just get some fucking small earplugs that, I don't know, there's like comfortable earplugs, you can even buy ones that are specifically molded so they don't stick out. And that way, when you put your head on the pillow, they don't bother you. So yeah, it's taken a him problem and trying to turn it into a her problem, which it's not a her problem. And I'm sure you've lived in places like this. I know I have. And it is just, I mean, I remember living in a duplex in Montrose. I don't know why the neighbors were stomping at 4 a.m. every morning. I'm pretty sure there was like some high heels or something else or some work. But yeah, it's just kind of a part of, and you know what? I think that one of the big things in apartments like this is always the give and take. It's like, they know I'm going to be loud on Wednesday nights when I have my like board game night.
Right.
And I know that they're going to be loud on Friday when they stay up all night, like smoking weed and watching comedies or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and I appreciate her vantage point on that, of just being mindful. Like, she knows that these people are just doing their best. When they make noise, it's because they have to eat breakfast and go to work.
yeah. And if any of these could be categorized as obnoxious, then maybe you cross a line where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about this. But all these seem like very reasonable times and reasons to make noise. So I don't think that there's a good complaint here.
Yeah, and I do think that, you get used to what you get used to, right? So this is a guy who lives far out into the suburbs, and so he's used to a certain level of noise at night. And so he's really struggling with trying to make it work, but it doesn't seem like he's trying at all.
So here's where the twist comes in. A lot of people in the comments were just immediately like, he's married. He's married. This guy's married. This guy's 100% married. Like, he's not, you don't go to his house. You're younger. Like, this dude's definitely married. And so I guess the poster got curious. She Googled property records for his home address, and she found out that he co-owns the house with somebody with a woman's name and his same last name. So either, I would say there's two options here. Either he is currently married or he's divorced and he's not telling her that he's divorced. But either way, there's dishonesty here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of I tried to think of like a charitable scenario where this could like, unless he like co-owns his deceased mother's house with his sister or something like that. That would be like, I mean, I guess I'm like a really charitable person sometimes. And if I was in this scenario and I actually cared about this guy, like, I mean, she may not. So she may just be like, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
But I would ask him.
Me too.
Who do you own your house with? And if he immediately was like, oh, I own it with my sister because this, and this, I would believe him probably. If he if he wasn't like, let me, you know what I mean? Like if it was just like he immediately had. So we could say there is like a charitable reason for this, but it's probably not anything good.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough. I mean, there is a chance, but like you said, I mean, I would ask, but it is like a red flag that this hasn't been talked about yet.
Yeah, and I already think that there's enough here for her to be like, yeah, I don't need to be with this dude,
Yeah.
Even if he's not married. So
yeah, and I would add too, just from a red flag standpoint, if you are always the host to someone that you're dating, that is a red flag. If you can't like share that responsibility, it seems innocuous at first because it's just like convenience. Oh, it's just so easier for him to be in the city. But like, no, people, look at your life. If you are dating someone and you can never go to their place, that is a red flag. I mean, do you agree, Greg?
yeah, and that's why I said that I was immediately suspicious, because I get that it might be easier for them to hang out at her house. Like when I started a relationship with my wife, she lived down the street from me. We spent almost all the time at my house, and it was because just like logistically it made more sense because I had kids and this and that. But I'd still been to her house.
Yeah.
Every now and then. And like, yeah, they're saying like, oh, well, it would take a lot of driving to hang out at his house. I'm like, cool. Well, what about the weekend? Like, I don't know. Or like, what about if he picked you up early in the day, you spent the whole day together, you spent the night and takes you back? Like, that's not that big of a deal. Like,
yeah,
if that hasn't happened once, yeah, huge red flag.
Yeah. And if we're newly dating and I don't want to spend an hour in the car with you, like, fuck right off.
Yeah. I mean, what a great opportunity to listen to an amazing podcast such as this one. I mean, we're going to come in at about an hour normally, so
it's perfect for that drive to the deep suburbs.
Yeah, and maybe they could have fixed their relationship. No, I'm not promising that to anyone. All right, well, I think that was sufficiently disastrous.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It had that "it's coming from upstairs" vibe to it, And then I can't talk about these without saying, do you think this is a true story or not? Do you think she had this twist in mind when she wrote this and was
It's
just
a lot of edits. Also, like, I don't know. I feel like for someone who's this thoughtful about her neighbors, I feel like she would have already Googled the property records. But that's just me. Maybe, I mean, maybe you're just like, you have these rose-colored glasses on when you start a relationship and you don't think the worst of someone immediately. But I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. I wanted to mention that the podcast is now available on all platforms where you get your podcasts. There might be some niche platforms where it's not available, and if that's something that you want, you just let us know, and we'll make it available there too.
Yeah, and you can let us know using our email. So it's theredflagspodcast@gmail.com, and that's red with 2 Ds.
And I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. I hope you, whether you're single or in a relationship or whatever, hope you just take some time for yourself and enjoy.
Happy Valentine's Day.